This is Dr. Bill Blatchford, and on this podcast, my guest is Dr. Jeff Rink from Charleston, South Carolina. Jeff's been a Blatchford Solutions coaching client since 2017, and you'll hear him talk about his first full year, he increased his collections from $2 million to $3 million. That's a phenomenal increase that we see from time to time. We call that our $1 million leap. He'll share exactly how he made that amazing jump. And no, he didn't do it by working longer and harder, hiring more people. He actually did it by working smarter with better systems and what we refer to as extreme ownership on accountability of all of his team members. Now get this, Dr. Rink does this with 4 team members. He'll walk us through how he was able to hit $3 million in a considerably less clinical days than it took him to do $2 million. That's the real story here today, how a very accomplished dentist was able to focus on the business side of his practice to make it run significantly more efficient.
Finally, before we get started, if you invest the time to watch this webinar, I'll reward you with a new patient action plan that's 100% customized to your practice and your market. I'll even give you many of the golden nuggets and use the same system to offer your new patients a virtual consultation. See, this is the future of dentistry, and the fact that Dr. Rink used this exact same system to sell 10 full mouth cases during the COVID shutdown speaks volumes to this. My daughter, Dr. Christina Blatchford, who's also a dentist and CEO of Blatchford Solutions, will explain the bonus in detail at the end of this webinar. The bottom line is this webinar is loaded with 100% proven strategies to grow your practice. So get out a pen and paper, sit back, and let's get started with Dr. Jeff Rink.
Jeff, when you started the program a couple of years ago, first off, you were a very accomplished dentist. I mean, there's no question about that. You've worked with Peter Dawson Academy, the Dawson Academy. You've worked with the Pankey Institute. You have worked locally with the AGD residency program. You have worked with the local with AECD, helping doctors improve their clinical skills. So you're very accomplished, had a wonderful practice doing somewhere in the 2 million range and during that first year. Jeff, could you tell us about, we call it the $1 million leap. Do you want to talk a little bit about that? And also bring in how you chose Blatchford over other consultants at that time.
Yeah, well, you know, I only have one regret in my whole career is that I didn't start with Blatchford Solutions 20 years sooner.
Why say it again, Jeff? That's really good.
It's the truth. That's my only regret is I didn't find it 20 years sooner. But be that as it may, in 2016, we decided it was time to work on our business side of our practice. We had been stuck in this rut of doing right at $2 million a year for 10 years, and it just really felt like we need some business acumen injected into our practice. And so we went to the AACD meeting in Toronto, and I did not attend a single cosmetic lecture. I spent the whole time at lectures for business professionals, and Blatchford was there, and 3 or 4 other consulting firms were there. And so we sat down, went to these lectures, listened to the 3-hour lecture, and then at lunch and at dinner, we would sit down and dissect it and say, okay, what was it about this team we liked? What did we not like? And so long story short, going through that process, it was great because all the greats of business consulting were right there in front of us. But the thing that really appealed to us about Blatchford was the work-life balance.
We've actually turned that around, Jeff. It's life-work balance.
Oh, good. I like that even better, the life-work balance, because it was great, because I love practicing dentistry. I mean, that's my thing. It's my hobby and my habit, and it's a lot of fun. But, you know, as you start getting into your late 50s and early 60s, you know, you start thinking about, okay, I really don't want to quit. I really don't want to slow down, but how can I become more efficient? And that's where it made so much sense to talk about after 7 weeks you hit burnout, the whole lecture, the whole 9 yards, just at that moment in time just said, this is exactly what we need. And that's how we made the decision.
So it was the balance, and that's something I'm so happy to hear you say. is because that's our philosophy. Is life is first, and there's so many other things. And besides dentistry, you've got a family. You're active with your church. You're active in mission programs, and those all require time as well. And a lot of doctors would like the time to pursue these things, and they don't because they work too much. You started telling me about your trips to Honduras. Talk a little bit about that. That's fascinating and commendable.
Yeah. Well, it's really interesting. We moved to Charleston in 1990 and from North Carolina, and we were looking for a church. We found St. Philip's in Charleston, and St. Philip's has been very active in mission work. So it made it easy for me because there was these groups of physicians that were always going to Honduras doing medical missions, and they needed a dental component. So I just kind of leapfrogged on with the docs and set up dental clinics down there as we went. So we did that through the years, and that's been very rewarding. I've engaged my family. My wife has been twice with me. My son's been 4 times. My daughter's been twice. And the most recent trip was really my favorite trip that we've been on, was to Tegucigalpa, which is the capital city of Honduras. We have a missionary that's been there for 30 years. And in that period of time, she single-handedly, this woman's amazing. She's the Mother Teresa of Honduras. She started a school that now has a grade from preschool all the way through grade 9 that has 244 students. She started an orphanage that has 60 kids and a staff of 10. She started a safe house for young women that were imprisoned in the slave trade, and so she helps to rescue children from that out of Honduras. I mean, it's just, I get goosebumps just thinking about it.
Yeah.
But, on this particular trip, we left March the 6th. And I had my wife, my daughter, my son, my daughter's boyfriend, and my dental assistant, Olivia, went with us, and a group of 9 other people, another doctor, and we went down to Goose and went to the orphanage there that Susie McCall, our missionary, had set up years ago, and treated the kids. The kids just need some dental care. So we had a great trip. It was, just a super time. We treated a lot of children. And it was a focus group, because so many times you go on a mission trip and you'll get into this situation where you go into a remote area and you just pull teeth. Well, this was nice because this group of people are going to be there next year.
Yeah.
So actually go in there and establish, preventive measures and restorative. And so anyway, that has been something that's been extremely rewarding in my practice.
Well, Christine and I went down to Haiti, and that's exactly what we did. We're up in little churches in the mountains, mainly extracting teeth. You got it. I mean, that's, and you don't even know if you'll see the people again. Now, you came back from that trip, and you mentioned you came back through Atlanta and about the airport and things. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah, we were down there and we started hearing more and more about COVID. So this was March the 6th, we left the United States, and we're coming back on the 12th of March into Atlanta airport at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and we're walking through the airport and there's nobody there. I mean, it was the most surreal experience I've ever had in my life, except for some of the support people. We were literally one of the last planes to come through Atlanta. And I'll never forget getting on the plane train and going to the different terminals and just being the only people on the plane train. It was unbelievable.
So you started then when they were mandated to close the office. You kept your staff on.
Yeah.
You mentioned you'd had some, pretty good week. You developed a cash reserve so you could do that. Talk about that and how you were able to keep your staff on during the break.
Sure. Well, right before we went to Honduras, we had a super week. We had great collections. And so we had cash in our reserves. And what was really interesting, though, to me personally, was that since we started with Blatchford in 2 years prior, our whole focus has been developing the good team, the team of 10s. And throughout that whole process, which was, attrition and School of Hard Knocks and learning proper hiring techniques, along the way, we realized the one key element that we had to have on our team members was everyone had to have a positive attitude. And so we had worked for 2 years to build this team of people who were so positive and upbeat. And when it came time to make the decision of whether we're going to close or not, I was like, I can't let these people go. I've got the money. What else am I going to do? And so I took the money and started paying them, and we came into the office. We kept our distance. We wore masks. Some people worked from home, and we worked on systems. We spent a month and a half on systems. We looked at every single component of our practice. We looked at the new patient experience. We scripted phone messaging. All the things that you wish you had time to do all the time, we had time to do.
You know, isn't that the truth? I talked to several doctors. Of course, we kept our staff on during this time as well. And we had a lot of interaction with our clients because they didn't have much to do. And so we spent a lot of time. But several doctors said the same thing. And I really appreciate it. This is an opportunity that we never get. We never get an opportunity to have 2 months off and catch up on projects that we always, if I just had a little more time. Well, we had the time, and I was so pleased with so many of our clients like you took the advantage of the time and got something positive done with it. I'm on several dental Facebook groups, and I'd have to say there's a fair amount of whining about it, and yet the positive side of it is what can you get done? Never had the time to do. It's such a wonderful opportunity. So you increased your production. Talk about some systems that you put in place that allowed you to go from $2 to $3 million.
Yeah, that's a great point. And the key element in our leap from 2 million to 3 million was in planning. It had to do with setting up our BAM cycles, looking ahead, and being strategic and focused on our morning productivity. So that the 80% of our goal reached in the morning, and holding the blocks and keeping that part of the schedule sacred was huge.
It is. Yeah, if you hit the 80% in the morning consistently, you're going to hit some pretty big numbers.
And what that did for us right out of the bat was we had a practice. I had a practice. I've been in practice for many years with a huge hygiene department. And we have a great hygiene department. And so I looked at it like, well, I've got all these patients back there that are restored and, we don't have anything to do. Well, as a matter of fact, I heard you lecture a couple of times, Bill, and one of the things you said is that when a patient goes to a different practice, they get looked at with a new set of eyes. And with a new set of eyes, they see things that maybe that's been sitting right there under your nose for years. And,
Jeff, that is something that, one of the things that we do, one of our systems, of course, is the 80-20 spreadsheet. And you look at that, and we've looked at that in literally thousands of practices. And you notice that your larger cases generally come from new patients, which means that's the data right there that you use in making that statement is you see a patient that somebody else has been seeing every 6 months for years, and all of a sudden we see work to do. And I say go back and take a look at your existing patients with new eyes. Everybody tells me that they take a lot of CE, and you've taken a lot of CE. Yeah. And the truth is, as you take all these CE courses, you become a better dentist than you were 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Now, here's the question I've always asked doctors. Is it morally or ethically right only to present that new and better dentistry to my new patients? But my existing patients don't get a chance to experience that kind of dentistry.
Absolutely. And, that was exactly what happened. The blocks opened up. Our hygienists got on board. And our hygienists, I love my hygiene team. Marlene is my head hygienist. She's been in hygiene for over 30 years. But she is so concerned about our patients maintaining their teeth. And we're looking at their anterior teeth, and we're like, holy cow, we have patients that have been in practice that are now in their 60s and 70s. The fracturing, the chipping, the breaking down of their anterior teeth. And it became an opportunity to have a heart-to-heart. Like, what do you want your teeth to be like in 20 years?
One of the things, Jeff, I did a number of years ago when I used to do the study clubs, I talked a little bit about how physicians look in a patient's mouth and they see tonsils. If a periodontist looks in the mouth, they see gums. And so without saying any more, I handed out a set of photographs to a group of doctors. There were 12 doctors in the group, and I handed out these photographs chosen specifically for the purpose. They had all their back teeth were restored pretty much, but their front teeth were okay, but they weren't nice looking.
Yeah.
And I handed them out and I asked them to come up with treatment plans. Well, after 3 doctors did this, we stopped because dentists look at back teeth.
Yeah.
They weren't looking at the front teeth. They weren't looking at the smile because they were okay. They weren't offering in their treatment plan the cosmetics. And we've found that if we offer these people treatment, so many will accept it. So many want it. And as a matter of fact, I've said for years that there are people leaving practices every day and going someplace else where they can get cosmetic dentistry. And they don't, these are good patients. They don't even ask for their x-rays. They just quietly disappear from your practice.
Absolutely.
And if you bring it up,
offering that to our existing client base, they totally were so excited because not only were they energized about having their teeth preserved long term with minimal preparation of their dentition, you know, then they look in the mirror and they've got a beautiful new smile. And it's like, holy cow! It's so exciting for them and for us as well. So, you know, that was a big thing. Having the blocks, having the team on board, knowing that we were going to be able to move from point A to point B with treatment, and put our patients in the best position they can to have a healthy, good-looking, natural smile that, you know, it's going to last them for the rest of their lives. You know?
I say it all the time. I, of course, have had my mouth restored three times actually, and the last time was 20 years ago. Dr. Rice Forrest, 28 units of porcelain, and my question always is, do all of your patients have the opportunity to say yes or no to that kind of treatment? And the answer is most of the time, the answer is no, they don't have that opportunity. Well, okay, so that's a good part. Now, during this COVID time when you were closed, you did some teleconferencing with patients during case presentation, which is how we teach. And obviously, it's one of those systems that you and your team worked on. Tell us how you did that. What were the results?
Okay, well, so what we did was...
Well, why don't you tell us the results first? That'll get the doctors who are watching this to listen up.
The results were that in the month of May, we had 35 teleconferences that generated 10 full mouth reconstructions.
Wow.
And I'm not making that up. It's the truth. And it was so good because, you know, if you've been in practice for a while, and if you haven't, that's okay. I mean, things develop, but being a local dentist that is accredited with the AACD and been teaching at the dental school for the last 14 years, the cosmetic curriculum, then what that does is that of course, we have that on our website. So when everybody had time on their hands in COVID and they're trying to figure out what to do, they're like, oh yeah, my smile hadn't been like, well, I wonder what I can find. They get online and they go, wow, there's Dr. Rink. And then boom. And so with a 10-minute conversation and an opportunity to connect with that patient and listen and actively listen and enjoy the conversation that you're having with them, you know, it becomes you bond with them. And then when they come into the office for their comprehensive exam, it's like, hey, how's it going? It's so good to see you. And they're like, oh man, I'm so glad to meet you live. And the connection was so much more powerful than I ever dreamed it could be.
Yeah, I think, I just think there's a lot to this. And I think it's a way that, what we teach at Blatchford is to have this conversation with a team member, so it doesn't take the doctor away from the chair, to have this conversation. And you said it's just a conversation. You're just asking questions. You're just finding out what the patient wants. It's not like you're trying to push something or present something or educate them into something. I actually think that this could be an answer that could be a real time saver in the future. I think it could be a large part of practices where you actually meet these patients via one of the online platforms, Zoom or WebEx or something like this, and you have the conversation, because you don't need the patient there. You don't need their mouth. You don't need their records. Just to have a conversation about their wants, and you can talk about budgets, and you can have all these conversations right from the comfort of their own home. And then when they come into the office to meet you live, it's really, really neat. I always think when there's one of these we'll call it a crisis, there's always an opportunity there. I work with a man named Peter Diamandis, who wrote the book Abundance. You've heard me talk about that. And, I go to his conference every year, and Peter always looks at when other people look at a problem, he looks for an opportunity in it. And he's slowly getting me to think that way. And every time you see a crisis like this, there's an opportunity. There is an opportunity to learn, to adapt, and move into the future. The new normal will be different than the old normal. It always is. And I think this is one of those. You also shared with us the other day that you had a very large production day, probably a record for you, I guess. Could you talk about that a little bit and how you were able to schedule that? What was the mix of treatment?
It's really kind of fun. This is a fun case. It started out as a virtual consultation with the patient. The patient has, it's really, you're going to love the story, Bill. He's a local rapper, and he had a gold grill. I'm not kidding, an upper and lower gold grill. And so we got talking about this, and he says, I'm really worried about my teeth. I went to my general dentist, and he says that, I've got periodontal disease, and I've got lots of decay, and I just, and I really decided that I just want a healthy mouth, and I want it to look really natural. And he says, let me show you what I'm talking about. So he gets his computer out, his phone, and he dials into his phone, and he says, I want to look like this. And he pulls up a rapper by the name of Young Thug. Young Thug. And you probably never heard of him, Bill, but Young Thug is an interesting man. He is probably in his 20s. He's a rapper. And he started out his career with, lots of bling and etc. And then you could tell us from looking at the pre-op photographs of Young Thug, he was a dental disaster. Mm-hmm. The dental reconstruction he had done cost $70,000. And he has upper and lower, all on 4 zirconia screw-retained prosthetics that are freaking they knocked it out of the park. And now all the rappers are thinking they want something healthier, more long-term, and that's what he's going for. And that was the impetus. So we did the exam, we got him in, and I looked at his mouth and I said, this is going to cost you $80,000. And he was like, all right, well, when are we going to get started?
Jeff, this is so fun because, see, I have taught for 40 years that we don't need to do that complete exam. We don't need all those records. We don't need to do all of that, because what does the patient want to know to make a decision? Can you do this? Can you make me look like this? And what's it going to cost? I mean, those are the questions they want.
That was it. That's exactly.
Just like you just did. You answered that question for him. You could have gone through and talked about where you're going to place the margins on all 28, each of the 28 teeth. You could have talked about the materials you're going to use. You could have talked about a myriad of things, and it wouldn't have made any difference. What he wanted to know is, what's this going to cost, doctor?
Yeah. And you know where I learned that from? You.
Well, and I did it that way for years in my own practice, and I've taught that for years. And so many people really struggle with that concept, but it works. It absolutely works, because that's what the patient wants to know. And if he'd have said to you, doctor, I know you're a great doctor, but there is no way in the world I would spend that kind of money on my teeth. I'm out of here. Well, you just saved yourself several hours in your life.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And that's how I saw it when I was practicing. I want to find out, if you're interested in doing this, I'm going to do a complete examination. I'm going to get all the records. I'm going to put together a treatment plan. I'm going to plan the treatment. But I don't need all of that to come up with a general idea of what it's going to cost. And it's very good. Well, this is really fun. I mean, this is fun. You're a great client and have done so well, and I'm just pleased for your success. Tell us a little bit about, besides the mission trips and the things, how does your team, how do they take advantage of the life-work balance in your practice? Because you've worked at putting this team together and had such a great team together, you decided it was worthwhile. And I applaud you for that, keeping them on payroll the whole time. How do they enjoy life-work balance? What do they do?
Well, that's a good question. I think with the team, I have taken an interesting approach in hiring. I made my number one qualification to be on my team is attitude.
Yes.
You have to have I don't care what your skill set is. As a matter of fact, the last 3 people I've hired are not from dentistry.
I love it.
How about that?
Well, I love it. And you take a look at some of our other clients, same thing. We've had one of our offices who we were talking about earlier when we first got on here, and I don't want to mention his name at this point, but his office treatment coordinator, who had never been in dentistry other than being a patient, had been in an insurance business. He ran a State Farm insurance office for years, and they're doing the same kind of numbers you're doing, and this is John is the person who brings these people and has these conversations, and it's attitude. If I've got a great attitude, you can teach anything. And if you've got a bad attitude, nobody can teach them anything. And so I'm with you completely. I'd rather hire for attitude than skill any day. We can teach the skills.
Absolutely.
I can't change attitudes.
Absolutely. It's huge. So our office coordinator has a degree in finance, and she's worked in finance for 10 years. She can run an Excel spreadsheet up and down like you've never seen. She actually, this has really helped us, is that she's so into the BAM and she gives us monthly projections. And at the beginning of the month, she takes all the collections, all the production that's on the upcoming month, and tells us how far we are behind BAM and goal at day 1. And so as we go through each morning meeting, we get an update. Well, how are we doing on BAM? Okay, wow, now we're only, the first day of BAM cycle, we were $100,000 behind. Second day, we were $60,000 behind. Oh, we had a big day. It's just, so we project it out. Everybody knows where we are the whole time. It's like having a roadmap in front of you rather than having someone recording behind you what you've done. Right. And it's exciting to have that kind of strategy and strategic planning. And, dental people wouldn't know how to do that stuff.
Right. How many people do you have on your team, Jeff?
Well, right now I've got 2 hygienists. I love those. Those individuals are first class, totally dedicated and excellent. I've got a office coordinator who is the person that's described. I have Olivia, Olivia is amazing. She came with me 2 years ago from the food and beverage industry. I was out to dinner with Carrie Warren and my wife, and she was waiting the table for us. And she came up and started talking. Have you heard this story?
Carrie, for those listening, Carrie Warren is our consultant that actually visits Jeff's office, and so yeah.
I love Carrie. Carrie is over the moon. She's awesome. But anyway, at the dinner table, we hired her. And so she came in and started working as my assistant, which she's done for 1.5 years. And she learned dental assisting inside out. And in the process, she learned the front desk as well. So now and one of the things she heard in one of her first lectures she did, Dr. Blatchford, was, she says, I'm going to learn how to be indispensable.
We call it cross-training. And we want everybody in our offices to be able to talk to a patient, talk to them about treatment, talk to them about finances. I want everybody to be able to schedule. Now, that doesn't mean they do that all the time, but they know how. So when the patient turns to the dental assistant or the hygienist and says, how much will that procedure be? I want them to be able to answer the question. It's not rocket science. Come on, we know what we charge for crowns. But in so many offices, it's like, oh, you'll have to talk to someone at the front. I don't have any idea what we charge here. So what a great thing. Also, my hat's off to Olivia, and you're hiring.
Yeah, so Olivia's now, she's moved. Right now, I'm in the process of hiring another dental assistant. I've hired a young lady who has been in food and beverage as to be a sterile tech because Olivia was my only dental assistant, right? One dental assistant.
So you have 2 people in the front. No, you have 2 hygienists.
Well, I've got 2
one dental assistant.
One dental assistant, 1 person in the front, and a sterile tech.
Okay, so I want to make this clear to people listening in. You're doing $3 million a year with really a team of 4 plus a sterilization technician.
Right, and we're overwhelmed, so we're hiring another dental assistant.
Okay, so I got it.
To be honest, that's where we're.
And just to give us an idea, you operate your practice at 20% overhead for staff, which puts your general overhead in that 50 to 55 range at the most. On a typical month, how much do your individual staff members make in bonus money?
Well, it varies from month to month, but basically anywhere from $1,500 up is a pretty standard month.
So you've got a situation there in Charleston where your team members they're not watching the want ads for dental assistants or dental administrators or hygiene positions. I mean, they're making at least another $20,000 or more a year just in bonus money.
Absolutely.
So this is something I think is really important. When we started Blatchford Solutions, one of the things that I saw was in so many offices, the staff they were treated as staff members, and one of our clients called that an infection. We want a team, but we wanted people that saw this as an opportunity, that saw it as a career, and a career that paid well enough they can support their family on. I wanted to pay enough that they didn't have to get a job at night working at a bar, tending bar or something. I wanted them to be able to work in the dental office, 3 or 4 days a week, and go home and enjoy their weekends. I didn't want them to have to get a second job. What about now time off with your team? How much time off are you taking?
Well, right now I'm working 156 days a year. That's translated to 8 weeks off. And of course the staff gets paid for a full year of work when they work with me.
So they rotate through.
Yeah, they rotate through, answer the phone, and since they're all cross-trained, they are all capable of doing all the work that needs to be done at the front. And so when we're hiring people, we tell them that they're going to probably get 6 weeks off paid a year. And people are looking at that and they're just like, how in the world can this be? And it all boils down to block booking, strategic planning, and execution and efficiency. And when you do that, there's so much time wasted in a practice.
Well, because everybody takes, you take 8 weeks of real vacation. Yeah. A lot of doctors take 8 weeks vacation, but they take it in their private office sitting at their computer, surfing the web, as you take yours in a resort or in Honduras doing mission work. Yeah, Jeff, this has really been fun. I just enjoy talking with you. And it's almost as much fun to talk to you by Zoom as it is in person, but I'm looking forward to seeing you the next time in person.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you, Bill. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you.
And for those doctors who took the time to listen, I want to thank you too. I mentioned that I have a reward for you, and here it is. It's a new patient action plan that's 100% customized for your practice and your market, and it'll be designed to attract the ideal patient that you tell us you want. This is something we normally only do for Blatchford Solutions clients, but I'm making an exception because I know that if you act on half of the strategies and systems that we recommend for you, you'll get more new quality patients than you've ever had. And then we'll give you a few simple internal systems to maximize the value of every new patient. And that's the real power of the new patient action plan. To get your 100% customized new patient action plan, simply go to the web address that's listed on the screen. That's blatchford.com/NPAP. That's blatchford.com/NPAP. We've designed a simple platform for you to tell us about who your ideal patient really is, what type of dentistry you love to do, how to do one thing to attract more patients than you've ever had from any online and social media marketing like Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, or Google, how to double, triple, or even quadruple your internal word of mouth referrals, which is the absolute lifeblood of the practice, how to track every marketing dollar that you spend to make 100% certain that you're getting great return on your investment, which is where we see so many times that doctors are not tracking this, and it doesn't make a lot of sense in terms of the dollars spent, and so much more. So go ahead and click on the link and get started and we will reward you with a consistent flow of the ideal new patient for your practice.